the list. Is Mr. Nicholas Brandon here?
Yes, I am.
Nick? Can I call you Nick?
Yes.
Please come to the table, thank you. Thank you very much for making the effort to make a submission. All submitters this afternoon will be given 5 minutes. We have your written submissions here in front of us. And so the 5 minutes is yours. So Nick, you can use it as you choose.
Thank you.
But I will be, and this is just for us more than it is for you actually, timekeeping is vital because we're sitting until 6 o'clock.
Yep.
So I will be timing you, and I just have to find my, where is it? Setting, oh there it is. But actually you can begin, you can have extra time.
Okay.
So thank you.
The first thing I'd like to add to the written submission is that New Zealand has led the way in so many areas of social change. It gave women the vote. It was the first country to do that. We were very early on the homosexual law reform. We had nuclear-free. We had same-sex marriage. You know, we were right at the forefront of all of these things. And so why are we being so slow to make medical marijuana available to patients with chronic illnesses who are being denied a medicinal drug that could be of value to them? So I'm asking you to have some empathy, do the right thing. There are, I just can't imagine what people are afraid of. Is it really seeing a clip of reefer madness back in the 50s that is fueling people's scaredness of this drug and the benefits that will come from it being available in a regulated manner? I'd also ask you to consider declassifying THC as well as CBD and the derivatives of it, because experience in other jurisdictions has shown that it is a combination of the two in that some proportion or other that yields the most beneficial outcome for people on a medicinal basis. There is some activity going on between the two components that enhances whatever it is that the benefit is. So we're not, I don't know the science behind it, but there is, in other jurisdictions, they have found that this therapeutic enhancement occurs when these two drugs are combined. The percentage of each to be used for each individual is a trial and error process, but you need to have really properly laboratory tested drugs available so that you know what you're getting, that you've got 10% or 20% of one or the other. So please consider declassifying THC and the other CBD derivatives. And there's no need to reinvent the wheel. It's been done before elsewhere successfully. So time is ticking. The other thing is to think of the economic benefits that could be derived for some of the poorer regions in our country. I'm thinking particularly the East Coast or the far north. There are really great financial opportunities for people in those regions to benefit from employment and from putting their skills to use in a good way, rather than growing it for the black market, and in the establishment of laboratories and internationally measured facilities. So I think there's a real number of wins out of being a bit more outward looking in terms of your approach. And the final thing I'd like to say is that as a person who has a chronic disease for which there is currently no treatment available, the current model for research and development of medication relies on funding from drug companies, largely. And so as a result, they're not interested in finding cures for anything because that will damage their cash flows. So what they're interested in doing is keeping as many people sick and reliant on regular medication rather than finding a cure. So we have to somehow break that model, which is deeply flawed, and find some way to fund researchers in medical schools and universities to come up with better solutions that actually solve the problem, aren't just a band-aid to put on it. And that's all I had to say. I'm available to answer questions if anyone has.
Thank you very much, Nick. I see that you have progressive multiple sclerosis, and I think the multiple sclerosis community have been identified for a long time as a potential kind of research cohort. I agree with you. I think we do need to have a lot more research from some of the evidence we've heard. There have been pharmaceutical companies who have explored, I guess, the potential of medicinal cannabis and actually chose not to progress, probably for some of the reasons you've highlighted, because their other products were selling in particular ways or being used in particular ways that may have been undermined if they'd been able to produce something that was a bit more effective and cheaper. Yeah. But I think the whole issue about a research agenda, but a partnership between researchers and distinct communities is really valid. And I know in Australia that they have looked at, that's exactly what they've done. They've looked at children who have seizures, they've looked at cancer patients and palliative care. And so I guess the opportunity for New Zealand to also contribute some evidence, in spite of the fact of people who are using it knowing it's effective, I guess makes it, what's the right word? I mean, because one of the things we've been grappling with is, cannabis as a medicine, and the verification and the processes you have to go through to verify it as a medicine for then GPs and clinicians to prescribe. So your point is not lost on our committee. Quality in the dosages. Yeah, so, and it's things you've actually brought up about the combination. So, yeah, so very much appreciate your submission. Thank you very much for making the effort.
I think I'd just add that I've probably been a bit narrow in my focus because there is a lot of other people with other diseases which are as life-changing as MS is, and they also can benefit from it.
Don't worry, we're hearing from them as well.
Good.
Yeah.
It's okay. You just need to do your bit.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now we have to go back. Is Matt Harding here? Mathew Harding? Mathew? Thank you for making a submission.
Yeah, no, thank you for letting me talk on it.
No worries. So you've got your 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And when you're ready, let me know, and I'll start your time. So, thank you.
Okay. Yep. So first of all, I'd like to say, like Julian, who before lunch that spoke on his submission, he's talking about the prohibition and how it just all started. It doesn't really make sense. It's kind of an outdated law, and it's here like 40 years old, I think he said. And so I think that needs to be kept into perspective when amending this one. And it's been mentioned most submissions today about the terminally ill. That's too small a scope. It needs to be onto the chronic people with chronic pain and illnesses like MS. The doctor's education needs to, I think that should be a focus in some stage on because I kind of feel like they're like, although it is legal for them at the moment to prescribe, they're too scared to, or there's kind of peer pressure not to. And also the scope on just CBD, I think, is too small. It needs like the entourage effect, it's called, with like CBD, THC, CBC, and all the other different cannabinoids. I think it would be a shame to miss out on the whole big scope of things when you, in terms of how to do it, I think we don't need to recreate the wheel. It's been just emulate the country's legislation who are already doing it. I mean, in US, the majority of states have legalized medical marijuana in 2016, so they must have gone through the same or similar process as New Zealand to pass that. So just kind of see what they've done and emulate that. So what I think would be good for New Zealand is to have licensed growers to supply the domestic and international market. So you'd see benefits for all New Zealanders from an economical and social point of view. Like the regional development is a key agenda for this current government, and I think that will be a huge way or opportunity to realise that. And it also helps with regulation. Like at the moment, people are having to use the black market to do things where you don't know where it or how it was produced, and there's no regulations on the procedures or anything like that. Yeah, that's all I've got. Have you got any questions for me?
Very good. Questions? Anna, Nikki?
Yes, you're a first-year licensed grower on a small trial plot. So how does that work?
So that's industrial hemp.
Right.
So that was no medicinal focus on that one, yeah. But it is the same cannabis plant. It's just for the seed. Yeah.
So what led you to applying, and what was that process like?
For the
license?
industrial hemp.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've always been quite interested in like cannabis as a whole because of the prohibition and the reasons why it's in the whole reefer madness kind of seems a bit kind of propaganda-y. So when I kind of came back onto the family farm, I thought I'd try get my foot in the door and try grow some and see kind of.
Is it growing well?
Yes, it did grow well. I've harvested it already.
Right. And what happens to it when it's harvested?
So I extract or get the seed out of it, and then sell the seed to people that press it.
Right.
And that oil is just a seed
like
oil.
rape oil or something like that.
Yeah, or like flaxseed oil or cod liver oil. Yeah. So I supplement. So it's quite independent of CBD or any medicinal type things. Yeah, kind of different.
So when some of the people who we've talked to today talked about cannabis oil, would it be that oil or not?
No. It's different. Yeah, there's a lot of confusion about it. That's probably the most common question I'm asked. Like, what get you high?
So the hemp that you grow has no THC or CBD in it?
It's got a really small amount, so it has to be tested, and it's got to be below 0.35% THC.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question was around, in terms of your license, do people visit to regulate producing?
Yeah. So to grow it initially in the application process, the local police had to come and see where I was going to grow it, and make sure that it was out of sight of the road and things like that, and met the requirements. And then when I was growing it, they came and had another look, and more out of curiosity than anything, just to check it out and kind of see if it is distinguishable between other cannabis. Yeah.
And the fact that you've got a license for the first year, can you continue to grow it or not?
So I have to apply each year. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries.
Now, is Tremane managed to make it? No? Oh, okay. Just let me know when he's here, because I think we'll slot him in when he arrives. So that means we have Shona, please. Kia ora, Shona. Welcome to the House Select Committee. You've seen how we roll. So
Yeah. Yep.
Well, when you're ready to start your 5 minutes, please let me know, and I'll.
Okay, well, thank you for hearing my submission today. In 2017, it was estimated by the Ministry of Health that 24% of the adult population in New Zealand have a chronic or long-term illness. This equates to about 1.1 million people, and I'm one of these. Many of the chronic illnesses have constant pain as a symptom. We live with pain all day, every day, and not just in the last year of our life. Pain is debilitating and unfair. I take medication for my pain, and then I take medication for the side effects of my pain relief medication. People like me, i.e. those with a chronic or long-term condition, are the thorns in the side of the healthcare system. We are expensive and medically not that interesting. Prior to diagnosis, our medical teams find us interesting and complex. They're challenged by the diagnostic process, the thrill of the chase, you might say. But as soon as you get a chronic illness is diagnosed, the chase is over. We are told in a very nice way to suck it up. We can't do anything more for you. Here, have a few pills. Along comes a medicine that is cheap, plant-based, been around for centuries, and has few or no adverse side effects. But it is denied to us because of politics. Pharmaceutical companies don't want us to have access as it will eat into their profits. Policy and lawmakers don't have the guts or the skills to give us access. There are two main excuses that they give. One, its effectiveness is not known. Little research has been done. And two, if you give it to some people, the floodgates will open. In response to little being known about its effectiveness, you just have to go on the internet. There is lots of research out there, some of it dodgy, some of it's good. But you also see that well-respected organisations like MSU USA are promoting that. They are putting on their website pieces of research supporting its use. I also did a quick search on the MedSafe website. If you look at Copaxone, now Copaxone is a very commonly used medication for MS. If MedSafe says, and I quote, although the exact mechanism of how Copaxone works on MS is unknown, it is thought that Copaxone ... So there are medications that they are using already for MS that they don't know the exact mechanism by which it works, but they know it does, so it's approved. In response to opening the floodgates to improper or illegal use, this is what legislators and public servants are for, research and writing comprehensive legislation. We don't go around saying we're not going to give the unemployed benefit to people in need because some people might abuse the system. So why should we have to pay for the fact that some people might abuse it? So in summary, what I'm requesting is one, that medicinal cannabis is accessible to all those with a chronic illness at an affordable price for as long as the symptoms of their illness requires relief, not just in the final year of life. And second, that controls are put in place to ensure that that cannabis available is tested and has documented THC and CBD ratios to be medicinally effective. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good submission. I have no questions.
Question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shona.
Tremane Barr has arrived. Kia ora, Tremane. How are you? Thank you for taking the time to come to Wellington.
Yes, well, I'm glad I could make it. Thanks. The weather did its best to hold me back, but no, I made it in the end.
Very good. So we have your submission before us. You will have 5 minutes to present to the committee. It's your time. If you want to take it all, that's fine.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there may be questions for you.
Yes,
So
yeah.
hand it over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I was diagnosed with neuroendocrine pancreatic cancer, which had spread to my liver in July 2012. My oncologist at the time said I had about 3 to 6 months to live. This is a typical diagnosis for that type of condition. People in my situation don't survive this long. Fortunately, I have, thanks to an organic diet, herbs and meditation and holistic approaches. There was nothing they could do for me, so I was left to figure it out myself. And thanks to help, I have figured it out myself on the whole. obviously I've taken a great interest in health and how to maintain health, and this is where the cannabis issue came into my life. Particularly this bill as it stands. If it was enforced in 2012, I would have qualified under it because they said I'd die within 12 months. Clearly I'm not dead within 12 months. I think the first point is that doctors do their best, but human health being what it is very vague science at best. And I think this bill limits the options available to us if it says it's within a 12-month window. Because it then comes down to the question, okay, what if they live more than 12 months and they were prescribed medicinal cannabis? Do that say, right, it stops on a certain date? And if it actually does work for you, tough luck, wait until you start dying again, and then we'll give it to you again. It's just crazy. The doctors and the patients need to be able to decide for themselves what is the best course of health care for them. And this comes to medicinal cannabis products as well. The doctors and the patients should be free to decide what is the appropriate course of action for them in that situation. The statutory defence, as it's currently envisioned, isn't wide enough. I mean, I think the same with the terminal diagnosis situation. I mean, we know cannabis from research overseas is useful with things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and so on. I know people with Parkinson's, they're not looking for a cure, but because of cannabis, they have a life. Their muscles don't tighten up. They can live a self-sufficient, normal life. If they stop taking the cannabis, they get bedridden. That won't save their life, but they'll give them a quality of life for much longer than they would otherwise. Not everybody has this effect, of course. I know people in the cancer community, those who have had miraculous effects from cannabis, those who have had a much better and longer quality of life thanks to it, and those for which it has done nothing whatsoever. So there's that spectrum of effects cannabis does have for people. But it should be up to the people to decide and their doctors what is best for them. Trying to survive cancer on your own is a very expensive business without support from the healthcare system, doing it all natural methods. As such, I believe we really should be able to grow it ourselves. If we need to get a license from prescription from the doctors, and so be it. And I'd hope they'd be able to prescribe seeds which have the right THC to CBD ratio and terpenes as well. So you'd be getting the right plant for your right condition, and they'd be able to adjust it and so on, stuff like that. And this would help keep the costs down. Cannabis oil and CBD. I was fortunate last year I went to Europe, and I was walking past a health food store in Bern in Switzerland, and there's a whole range of CBD products. Anybody in the street could walk in and buy it. This here is a hemp cream, contains CBD, or it's just the packet. I probably would have been arrested if I brought it into the country, even though I couldn't get stoned on it or anything like that. But like anybody in Switzerland can just go and buy any type of CBD product, tourists included. Same again in Denmark. I found this is just by accident. I didn't go to look at this, but this is what I found. There's another one. This is from, as you'll see in my submission, just from a hemp crop. It's only a few years ago they figured out they mainly grew it for seed and oil and stuff, but then they figured out the leaves actually contain CBD. And so they made it, get it extracted and make it into a paste which people can take for their health conditions. And anybody can buy it off the shelf, online, whatever. And as it stands in this bill at the moment, it's talk about opening it up but by prescription. Well, when clearly there's jurisdictions all around the world which are opening it up freely for people to buy as they see the need for it. And I think that's very important that we have the right to do that. In terms of the domestic market, I think the bill isn't particularly clear around what the framework is going to be in terms of growing and how you can process it and sell it and all the rest of it. And it needs to be very clear about the regulatory framework you're coming up with, because there is an arms race on at the moment in the cannabis field, in case you may have noticed, and there's billions, tens of billions at stake, and we're behind the 8 ball right now, and we really need to get into it, and this will help with the quality, quantity, and the price of the products we eventually get. So in conclusion, this bill needs to change in line with my submission and others to reflect the healthcare interests of people who need the healing powers of cannabis at a reasonable price that is affordable to the average person. So,
Thank you. Very good submission.
thank you.
Did you try those products?
Yes, yeah. This is just the cream one. I got eczema and I found it very useful. They also I brought some droppers as well as a liquid, whereas this was more of a paste in a tube type thing.
And they ate the paste?
Yes, just ate the paste. It's sort of a waxy, oily, sort of thick paste from the CBD. You can further refine it, but that was, I think, they've only just been going a couple of years with this because they figured out in Denmark and Switzerland THC is illegal, but unlike New Zealand, they didn't make CBD illegal. So this market has sprung up accidentally as evidence has come in that it has positive health benefits for people, and the demand is there. So yeah.
Thanks for the photos.
Yep. Yes. No. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a terrible disease, unfortunately. Very much an anomaly. So I'm glad I could be here to give this submission. If you want to know more about my story, I'm in the latest Organic NZ magazine. So there's a bit of a spread on me in the back, but more details on what I did and how I survived.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Mr. Ezra Stobbart. Ezra? Welcome to the Select Committee, Ezra.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. You have your 5 minutes, and when you're ready, I'll start your time.
Ka pai. Is it alright if I open up with karakia? Whakataka te au ki te uru, whakataka te au ki te tonga, kia mā kina tiuta, kia mā taratara ki tae, hea kia ngā te a tākura, he tio he hukai hauhu tihe mauriora. My name is Ezra Stobbart and I work in suicide prevention and mental health. I've been doing this for 6 years. Throughout my time being in mental health, I have come across many different people with many different issues. For me, cannabis is one of the things that will heal our country. And we've got to stand up and we've got to make the stand to say, yes, we can. We have amazing climate conditions that would produce the best in the world. I'm not saying that we should be accepting cannabis as a whole, but more that we should be accepting CBD. For it's the THC inside of the cannabis that is the addictive mentality. I was there watching my mum, who used antidepressants and cannabis at the same time, and the adverse effects of her bipolar was skyrocketing. Her mood swings were higher than normal when she was just on cannabis alone. I stand here for the simple reason of I know people are out there that are hurting in silence. We've got ex-cops that will not touch the stuff but are suffering in pain because the stuff is not legal, and they will not touch it until it is legal. This is the stuff that can heal. This is the stuff that does heal. We see it, it works. So what are we waiting for? Why are we standing around with our hands in our pockets because generations before said cannabis is a big no-no and, you know, you're a pothead? Whatever. Pothead is a simple term of being happy. That's what I believe anyway. And in the words of Patch Adams, we should be increasing the quality of life with our patients who are suffering. We're talking about MS, we're talking about mental health issues, we're talking about anything. We have the capability of healing so many different things that are out there. You look at someone with anorexia. Now, when we hear of cannabis, the first thing that pops into our head is munchies. Well, for me, that's what it is. That would stop the mind frame, or I haven't done much research into that side of things. But the things that we can do to benefit our people, is simple. It's making this stuff legal. As I said before, I work in mental health, and I also focus on rongoa. And rongoa is Māori medicine, and I particularly love making pani. And pani is extremely healing. We use kawa leaves and honey and everything like that. And if we could only put CBD in it, for a cancer patient that can't smoke it, that can't eat, that can't do any of that form, we can put it inside of the pani, rub it on their belly button, and we see the effects happen within moments. We've seen videos across the world of people that are having epileptic fits. Like, you see it right in front of you. They take this stuff, everything subsides, everything goes away. I do understand that there are dangerous effects to cannabis when you can use it for too long, or you're using it in the wrong dosage. But we really shouldn't be looking at that. And I also understand that some people that take it have a really different effect. A friend in front of me had an effect that I've never seen before from any of my friends that have used cannabis, where he turned white, he became breathless, and I was actually scared. So, I don't know, but I believe that we have the power and the capability of creating strains that nowhere else in the world would be able to do. We have the best conditions, we have the best resources, and yes, as my friend said just before, we have been the leaders in world change. Come on, the first people for the right to vote. You know, you've got the electric fence, you've got the washing machine, you've got all these amazing things. Kiwi ingenuity is right here, it's right now, and we've got it. So what are we waiting for? Why are we standing here having these hui, and nothing's happening? We also need to decriminalise this, because people are getting locked up for healing themselves.
Thank you.
So, kia ora tātou.
Kia ora. I was just going to commend you. It's nice to have young people come and present and in your own way. So I'm glad that you felt comfortable to do that. And I think what you've highlighted is a bit like we've had arguments today about alcohol and tobacco, and it's actually not the alcohol or the tobacco or the cannabis itself. It's the types and how we use it and what we use it for. Like, what's the purpose? So appreciate you making a submission. Thank you very much. Is Ray here? Ray, welcome to the Health Select Committee.
Thank you. Do you mind if I bring my friend along? Because
Not at all.
I'm visually impaired and it's very difficult for me to see. So I have some documents to show you as well. So
Okay.
if I can have him by my side.
Absolutely. So we have your written submission.
Yes.
And you do have 5 minutes. It's your time.
Yes.
So however you want to conduct that, 5 minutes is your business. So thank you.
Okay. So first of all, I'll start by saying why did I write that report. 3 years ago, I have been suffering from diabetes since 2002. I've also got a vision impairment, which is a blindness. And this was about in 2015 Rugby World Cup. That's what I looked like. Okay, I have since. You can pass it around. I have since lost 16 kilos of weight, and obviously I have my diabetes under control. These are the tablets that I take, and there's 20 tablets in total, 15 in the morning, 5 in the evening. I also inject myself with insulin, right? And I had no control at all of my diabetes. It had come to a point where if I had continued, I would have got gangrene in my foot, lost my foot, and subsequently died. And yet, because of the tablets, I was able to curtail this. In 2015, I went to the States, and a friend of mine suggested, why don't I try cannabis? And So I registered myself and got my, this is called medical marijuana card. And I was able to purchase cannabis from a dispensary. And they had all forms. This is why I'm saying, and that is medical cannabis. I mean, at the end of the day, you can go to a dispensary, you can tell them what your ailments are, they will suggest what strains are good for you. You select the strains that you would need. You can then bring it home and you can smoke it. And I'm telling you, within weeks, I had a total transformation of my diabetes. I'll tell you, there was a point where I had a problem going to the toilet. I was constipated and everything else. Come 6 o'clock in the evening, my ankles swell up, and I have to go to the toilet, but I can stand there and strain and strain and strain, and nothing happens at all. But since taking this, I have had really, first thing in the morning, I go to the toilet. That's it, dumped. And then, right throughout the evening, I have no issues at all with, so I know my metabolism's all working. And the only way it is working is because of the cannabis. So there may be other people like me who it will work for, and there may be some people who it won't work for. But the only way to do it is to train our medical practitioners to understand that we do have an endocannabinoid system in our bodies. And that is the important thing. And that's going to take years before we can come to that stage. But in the meanwhile, I suggest that cannabis is legalized so that everybody can use it. It is safe. I guarantee you it's safe. Right? To actually die of overdose, you have to consume about 30 pounds. What is it? 30 pounds? Literally. 30
Tons.
Yeah, tons of cannabis to actually sort of kill you. The other thing I have an issue with is the CBD. Okay, CBD is wonderful. Okay, the U.S. government has a patent on CBD, and they say it's antioxidant and a neuroprotectant. A neuroprotectant means that if there's some harm coming into your brain and you take cannabis, it actually protects you because of the CBD. Now, it does the same thing with THC. So you take THC and it takes you to a high. It gives you euphoria. It causes a little bit of a situation where you're not in control of. Okay? But it doesn't take you to the limit. It doesn't take you to the point where you will die, because CBD comes in halfway through and it suspends the THC and it supports you from prolonging the treatment. And that's why I'm saying it is safe. 12,000 years it has been associated with humankind in one way or the other as a medicine, as obviously as hemp, as a fiber. And the medicinal aspects go back to 2737 BC. So that's about like 5,000 years ago. And it's recorded in a Chinese document that cannabis was in use for medicinal purposes. So it has been around for that many years, but here in just a fraction of the last 70 years, we have abolished the opportunity to use this drug as something that supports you, that's something that prevents you, because it is something that, okay, the word is homeostasis. Homeostasis is a balance in the body. And what it does is it brings upon this balance in the body, which helps you to overcome all the illnesses and side effects and stuff like that. Right. Now to conclude, I would like my friend to read
We're not
just
going to
2 minutes. It won't even take 2 minutes. It is very important.
Just leave it for us.
You can leave a supplementary submission to your submission.
It's just this. That's all I'm going to read. And
We'll
it's
pass it
important
around.
from a DEA federal
Yeah.
law judge.
We'll pass it around.
Yeah, if you leave that with us, because we're on, I'm sorry, but if I give you more time, there are others here, and we're trying to be
Can we
fair.
keep this?
Yes, certainly.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray.
Thank you.
So we have Miss Anna Fisher. Thank you, Anna. You've seen how we work, so we've got your 5 minutes, and when you're ready, let me know, and
cool.
I will
Thanks.
go.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for your time. My name is Anna, and I support this bill, but I don't think it goes far enough to help people like my dad, who suffers from Parkinson's disease and chronic pain. In 2007, my father was struck by a severe case of shingles, which spread internally, leading to meningitis, encephalitis, and a mini-stroke. It was the first of several major knocks on his health. It was heartbreaking and gut-wrenching for our family to live through, and it forced Dad into early retirement and the start of living daily life with ongoing chronic pain, poorly managed by prescription medication. In 2016, Dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's, an illness that affects his mental and physical well-being on a daily basis. His world begins to get smaller as the Parkinson's disease, the neurological pain, and the side effects of the daily meds take their toll. He had been managing his health pretty well until February this year when he fell very sick, rapidly leading to a critical case of sepsis and pneumonia. He came pretty close to the edge, but mercifully he had the inner strength to fight it. Go, Dad. He was in hospital for 2 weeks. We calculated that he was prescribed over 250 oral and IV medications, a drug cocktail that severely affected his Parkinson's, and a major medical event that he is still in remission from. In a few weeks, he'll go back into surgery with the risk of the infection reoccurring. He's already proven he has the strength to tackle this, so stay strong, Dad. I love you. Dad has never been one to drink much, has never taken recreational drugs, and has never broken the law. Whilst he understands the benefits of prescribed meds, he can't stand the chemical haze and what he calls the brain fog and the other disruptive side effects that these medications bring, with minimal effect on managing his pain or his Parkinson's. Often he refuses the meds and suffers the pain to feel present. In desperate times, Dad has often thought about obtaining cannabis via the black market to treat his condition, but stops short of doing so as there is no certainty of dosage, and he wants a medical treatment, not the high that unregulated cannabis would bring. My fear is that as the Parkinson's progresses, he'll be forced into more of this medication that brings more damaging side effects, continuing to reduce his quality of life. Yet at the same time, there exist peer-reviewed, evidence-based studies that have proven medical cannabis can be beneficial to manage my dad's range of health conditions, which makes me realise that we are no longer faced with a lack of evidence, but merely a lack of education as to the medicinal benefits of cannabis. How, as a progressive society, do we ask people like my dad to choose between his health and the law? That he and my family would need to risk legal prosecution to access whole-of-plant treatments, especially since there has been a significant shift in the global public mindset from marijuana as a gateway drug to marijuana as medicine. And it's one of the fastest growing global economies as more societies embrace and access the medically proven benefits of cannabis, and business continues to develop quality, innovative medical products to meet this growing demand. We have a massive opportunity as we transition from a black market, the only place currently affordable and available to those who need it, into an established and regulated industry that provides a wide range of whole-of-plant-based medical products to treat a vast array of chronic illnesses. An industry where we can leverage our proven excellence in agriculture, entrepreneurship and innovation to create a new economy centred on social, natural and human well-being. Because for many New Zealanders, medical cannabis can and does provide them with the ability to live manageable, fulfilling lives. But with this bill, my father would have to currently risk prosecution to use this medication, and for the awful reason that he isn't terminal. My father and others require legal access to whole-of-plant medical cannabis, not just CBD. And we need to build a regulated domestic industry that champions entrepreneurship, innovation and social well-being to produce effective quality medical cannabis products of a standard that New Zealand is globally renowned for. The world is ready for it, and they're already doing it. New Zealand is primed to become a leader in it. And I want my dad to stick around for a long time. Thank you.
So your dad currently doesn't have access. He would like access.
He would like access, but he has a lot of brain fog from the opioids that he at times refuses to take, and he doesn't want to get high. And because he has a range of health conditions and Parkinson's is still in its early stages of medical cannabis treatment, he wants to know with certainty that he's getting, whole of plant specific dosage treatment to get him off the opioids. Yeah.
But you do have confidence that that's what the legislation is attempting to do, is to create that regime to then enable these products to be available. It will take time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that the main concerns I have is that I don't think it should be about terminal illness. I think it should be about people's ability to live manageable and fulfilling lives with chronic illness and pain. I think that people should be able to grow their own medication, but to specific regulatory standards. Right. And I just want my dad. I just don't. I've had to spend many nights in hospital watching him come close to death, and wake up in the morning to take very, very heavy-hitting pharmaceuticals and still be in chronic pain. And I want to provide him with an alternative.
Has he thought of trying Sativex?
It's too expensive. And because he has neurological pain, he has such a wide range of conditions. We imagine that it would take, the right medication from the rightly educated doctor to give him the right dosage requirements to manage, Parkinson's versus neurological pain, quite different illnesses.
I just wanted to say, I think the focus on the regulatory regime being able to then regulate, grow your own specific products, although it's out of scope for people to be able to grow their own within our bill, because the Parliament's already had a debate and we voted that down. I can't see why that can't be part of a regulatory framework.
I would absolutely support that, yes.
Yeah. But the other thing is you realise that the exemption is just for prosecution. So once the regime's in place, it will be available to everybody who needs it based on the doctors prescribing it for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. So the next.
And Christine as well.
Okay. Go on.
It's actually Judge Young's from investigation. There's been a thorough investigation into cannabis, and I think we should be looking at those things because the wheel has already been discovered. It's just finding out a little more.
More evidence. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 submissions are all by teleconference. Oh, Mark is after Kelly. Yeah. So we've now got Tracy. Yeah. Write your own specific seat within a regulatory regime. Why not? Yeah. I know.
Is that me you're trying to ring? You said you're Tracy.
Oh, are you here?
I'm here.
Tracy?
Yes.
Oh,
I said
we've got you listed as a teleconference.
Sorry. Something's going on here. Sorry, I said that if I couldn't come because of Grace's health, then I'd let you guys know. But I'm here.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So we're in your hands.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you today. My name's Tracy, and my daughter Grace has been prescribed medical cannabis since November 2015. As you'll be aware from my submission, Grace has a severe chronic condition as a result of an encephalitis or an inflammation of her brain when she was 10. She's just celebrated her 16th birthday in March, which means that she has endured nearly 6 years of what can only be described as a living hell. Excuse me. Since beginning medical cannabis in 2015, Grace has experienced great improvements in her motor skills, her epilepsy and her dystonia. 3 months after beginning medical cannabis, she regained her ability to speak. And Grace has been, cannabis has become a really valuable tool alongside her other treatments. Some medications we've been able to wean away completely, and other medications we've been able to reduce. As far as the regulatory framework is concerned, medical cannabis in New Zealand needs to be affordable. I've been told by Grace's specialists that Pharmac will not be subsidising these medications. She has been prescribed 2 different products. One is Sativex, which is taken as an oral spray, and that costs us $1,100 for 3 bottles, which, depending on the dosage that she needs, can last anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. Lately, she has been using Tilray oil, which is also taken orally, and that is at a cost of $902 for 3 bottles, which at her current dosage lasts us 25 days. Unfortunately, at the moment, her dose is presently higher as her 3 monthly Botox injections that she needs in her neck, her back, her arms, her legs, her thumbs are 3 months late. So at the moment, she's in a great deal of distress and very stiff, and so I've had to go up on the medication. We're only able to afford the medication due to the generosity of the public. I have had to leave my job as a registered nurse when Grace became ill in 2012 to become her full-time carer. And now I am a single parent, so I'm on a supported living benefit as Grace's carer. So the cost of these products is prohibitive, and we're just very lucky that we have been given money through fundraising, and latterly some temporary additional support from WINS has helped towards the cost. I have to reapply for that every 3 months, which is quite stressful. You're always thinking about how much money have I got left. I mean, if we'd tried it for Grace and it hadn't worked, that would be fine, but it has worked and it's been incredible, and it's not something I can deny her. So for us, it's important that it's made affordable. Alternatively, making our own medicine until New Zealand has an affordable medicinal cannabis scheme in place. Realistically, that's possibly, 2-3 years away. I don't know. But until that happens, we need to be able to have that viable option. But I also think to be confident in the end product, we need to be in control of the entire process. I don't think it's feasible to go and buy some raw product from someone on the street. You need to be in control of the entire process, from choosing the strain of plant that you want to grow, to be able to grow it organically, pesticide-free, disease-free, and then to continue on and do the extraction by a suitable method. Which brings me to my second point in regard to the regulatory framework, and that is that Grace needs access to a variety of medical products in order to address her specific symptoms. What she is prescribed is a 1-to-1 ratio THC to CBD. Sativex and Tilray oil are both the same. Much has been said about CBD-only medication, but medical cannabis is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all medicine. Grace needs the THC as well to effectively calm her spasms and give her relief from her pain. There are numerous strains providing varying ratios of cannabinoids and terpenoids, and studies are showing the merits of whole plant therapy rather than isolated extracts. Those studies are coming through, the entourage effect, they call it. Because Grace ingests her medicine, it takes some time to take effect, and in times of distressful dystonic storms or prolonged clusters of seizures, I do have to resort to sedative drugs to knock her out. Lorazepam and clonidine just make her go to sleep, get her to sleep for a few hours. But I know that there are high THC nasal sprays available in the States that are amazingly effective in those circumstances. My final point in regard to the statutory defence is that will be granted to the terminally ill is that my daughter is classified as palliative, but she isn't at this point dying, and to make the prediction that she will die within the next 12 months is impossible. I would like, therefore, to see those with debilitating and severe health conditions to be included, and that would also extend to carers and family that might need to provide medication for them. There also needs to be provision made for patients to grow the plants they need or to nominate a grower if they are unable to do so themselves. Realistically, as I said before, a local New Zealand scheme will still be years away, and in the meantime, patients need to be able to medicate safely if unable to pay for the prohibitively expensive imported products. So, again, I thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you today.
Thank you, Tracy.
Any
Can
questions?
I ask, no one actually has highlighted the palliative. I mean, we're focused on terminal, but actually I think palliative has got a particular connotation about, managing people kind of in a stage of chronic condition.
Yes.
So what, can you just talk me through that definition and how your daughter meets that definition?
She will not get better. Her set of symptoms with the damage to her basal ganglia means that she suffers severe dystonia, which is contorting her body. She has been a very, very extreme case. And as I mentioned in my submission, she's had numerous interventions for that. She's had deep brain stimulation. She's got an intrathecal baclofen pump running, which we have been able to reduce the dose of since using cannabis products. But she won't get better. So it's more about quality of life and controlling her symptoms. She has a very severe back curvature, scoliosis, which the force of the spasms is just dragging her more and more out of position, and that is inoperable. So long-term, medicinal cannabis is going to be very important in providing her with pain relief, to enable her to sit in her chair for a period of time, to enable her to sit in the chair long enough to go in the van and go for a drive or go to school for the 3 hours that she currently can manage.
I mean, because we're trying to navigate our way through a piece of legislation that's constrained by another piece of legislation that we voted on. So I'm talking about Chloe Swarbrick's memory bill. So we need to, if we were to look at broadening that exemption, we have to find the right mechanism to do it. But that also communicates, I think, a level of care and need that is kind of more, I was going to say, which is part of a systems approach to supporting people. And
I think in Grace's case, she's suffering, she suffers. Her suffering is indefinite. There's not an end line. It could be tomorrow because she is fragile. But at this point in time, it's indefinite and she will always have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I'm just making sure Kingsley's not here. No. So Kingsley is our next submitter. Fine. So, do you want to go to the next one, Josephine? Please. Kia ora, Josephine, are you there? It's Louisa Wall speaking.
Oh, kia ora, Louisa.
Kia ora, Josephine, we're just going to turn you up a bit. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, can you hear me?
I can. So before you begin and we give you your 5 minutes, there's a couple of colleagues in the room who are going to introduce themselves.
Hi.
Right.
Hi, I'm Nikki Wagner, MP from Christchurch.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, Josephine. Ana hila kanongata asui suiki. Bayliss MP based at Papakura in Chanmugan.
Pardon?
Ana hila based at Papakura.
Oh, kia ora.
Kia ora, Josephine. So we have a 5-minute submission from you. It's your time. So
Yes.
You do with it as you choose. If there are any questions you'd like us to answer, please save a little time at the end. But if
Yes.
you're ready to go, Kate's pie.
Ready.
There we go.
There's not much more to say, is there? Most of it's been said. The law shouldn't just be for terminal, it should be for chronic and debilitating as well. Remove cannabis and hemp from the Misuse of Drugs Act. With all the money that's been spent on these, we could have set up our own medicinal cannabis program. You know, the people who are using it aren't going to stop because it's working. It amazes me how many politicians can sleep at night knowing that one tick can change people's lives. That's it.
That's you. You want some?
Point. That's right.
Actually, I've got a question then about, because you're right, the exemption regarding prosecution is only for people with a terminal condition. I guess our challenge is if you make it too broad, then essentially anybody can use it free from prosecution. I know people have been talking about chronic and debilitating, but is there we've just talked to...
I think after you've had a condition for something like 3 or 4 years recurring, be considered chronic. And debilitating means if you can't get around, if your quality of life is then have a debilitating lifestyle. I don't know. But that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I think...
It's a long-term medical, you know, you can't just go to your doctor and say, oh, there has to be backup, there has to be proof, medical proof. And most of the people, I believe, who have made submissions have got history over 30 years long.
So,
you know?
What would have to be very carefully stated in the legislation is the definition of those words. That's what legislation is all about.
Definition, terminal.
Yeah.
2 years ago, my oldest brother diagnosed cancer and given 6 months to live. He died in January this year. We're all terminal.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Well, I think that was a very straightforward submission, actually. Josephine, yours has probably been the most straightforward. And I guess there's a challenge for us just to get on and do something.
Absolutely there is. Absolutely. And thank you very much. Please change the law.
Kia ora. Thank you, Josephine.
Kia ora.
So, are we going to go back to Kingsley or are we going to try Victoria? Yeah. I think the rule is we try 4 times, and if it becomes too difficult, we just have to move on.
I'm still here. I don't know why, but I...
Go enjoy the rest of your day.
Well, Yates was supposed to make his submission about this.
You still there?
No. It's okay. you keen to have a look? Okay, well, we'll move on from
Victoria
cancer.
now.
Yeah. No, but we are Wednesday afternoon. Yeah. It's normal, I think 9 to 1. And we're sitting in the afternoon as well. Kia ora, Victoria. It's Louisa Wall speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Very good.
Right.
Could you?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. That's much better for us. Can you hear me
Good.
loud and clear?
Good. Yep,
Very
we're
good.
here.
So
Yeah.
just before you start, and we give you 5 minutes for your submission, I'll just allow my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Nikki Wagner from Christchurch, National MP.
Good to hear from you, Nikki.
Kia ora, Victoria. I'm Anna Hila, Labourist Member of Parliament based at Papakura in Auckland.
Right.
Right, so we're in your hands. Thank you, Victoria.
Okay, do I only have 2 people on the select committee?
And me, Louisa. I'm chairing.
Oh, and Louisa, the chair. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for the brief nature of my submission to you, but I was having computer problems and I was only able to throw that in at the last minute. First of all, I'd like to say that as a Grey Power member, I strongly support the Otamatea Grey Power branch, who has submitted to you earlier and is asking our government to re-legalize the cannabis plant for our health benefits, allowing us to have a choice between the prohibitively expensive and potentially dangerous pharmaceuticals and the plant that has been used for centuries with not one single death by overdose. I am a victim of the war on drugs. We are all victims of the propaganda that we have been fed over the decades when the incredibly misguided war on drugs was imposed upon us. I myself was dragged through the courts as a 60-plus-year-old woman, never having stepped outside the law before. I was growing cannabis for my husband because he lost his legs in a medical misadventure. Cannabis proved to be the only effective drug in completely stopping the excruciating phantom pain that he and other people with limb amputations experience. And like Helen Kelly, he said that using cannabis allows me to continue to function. And that was the beauty of it compared to the very strong and addictive opiates that he was offered. When your young ones, your grandchildren, children, friends, are out there in the real world, when they grow up, it is perhaps naive to think that they will not be offered some kind of drugs at some stage. Right now, in this country, people are being offered a drug that they call synthetic cannabis, which has nothing to do with cannabis. It is a vegetable matter sprayed with chemicals, some of which have killed almost 20 New Zealanders last year. The unintended consequences of cannabis prohibition is resulting of higher use in extremely dangerous drugs like P. Please don't believe me. I will now quote Dr. Graham Gulberson, who recently received an award, and he was written up in the New Zealand Doctor magazine, and he says, I quote, Prohibition of cannabis has driven people to use dangerous alternatives like synthetic cannabis with deadly results. Cannabis is right down there at the low end of the harm spectrum. A 68-year-old woman patient tells me, I go to my tinny shop to buy cannabis, but the last few visits, all they had was a white powder. If there was a proper provision of recreational cannabis where people knew what they were getting and could buy, they're less likely to get these other dangerous substances. You have all asked, and I think, Nikki, you have asked for more evidence of efficacy. You can be very comfortable in noting that Dr. Anthony Falcroft, who is a renowned New Zealand oncologist, says that between 40 and 60% of all New Zealand cancer patients are already self-administering with cannabis because it works. And why else would they risk incriminating themselves and family members if it did not work? Also, a new study that came out was written up in Drugs and Alcohol Today. It was research from the UK, Ireland, and Denmark. It looked at the research team was made up of 7 researchers, and they looked at 4,700 Danish 24-year-olds. They found that cannabis use on its own did not cause psychosis, and that the one quote that is commonly used comes from research that did not look at other causes of psychosis and impaired brain development, like overuse of other drugs such as alcohol, pharmaceuticals, traumatic events, or what 5% of all New Zealand children are suffering from, and that is alcohol fetal syndrome. So to use that as an excuse not to re-legalize this plant is not valid. Also, research, because it worked for my husband with his limb pain, his phantom pain, is because cannabis is a neuroprotector. That is why it is also effective for people who suffer from seizures. That's why it's also effective for people who have glaucoma. I have 2 front pages of my local newspaper here. One says alcohol, big problem in ED. The other one says meth-fueled violence hits nightlife. You will never see an article like that on cannabis. It is not a dangerous drug. It is very low on the harm spectrum. And former police chiefs, both in America and last week in Australia, Bob Kerr and Jeff Kennett, came out and said that cannabis should be treated as a health issue, not a criminal issue. They are not alone in saying this. James Gray from the United States Judge of Superior Court said, and I quote, I believe that cannabis prohibition is the biggest failed policy in our country's history, second only to slavery.
Wow. Victoria, I'm just,
yes.
your 5 minutes are actually...
Oh, no. Okay, any questions? Please question me. Please challenge me.
Actually, Anahela's got a question for you.
Thank you.
Victoria. We've had a lot of people who talked about other people going through the court system through cannabis. Just wondering if you could share the criminal conviction you received during that experience.
I was brought through the courts, and I was accused of supplying cannabis. I did supply cannabis to my husband because I could not watch him go through that kind of pain and have no other alternative. And I put to you that you would do the same. And I did not get convicted because the judge and the courts of this country are starting to see that sending people to prison for helping other people who are sick and don't want to be subjected to dangerous pharmaceuticals should not be a crime.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your submission.
Thank you so much for listening to me and other people.
You're welcome. Kia ora.
Ciao.
Going out to Ashley. Kia ora, Ashley. It's Louisa Wall, the Chair of the Health Select Committee. Are you there? Hello, Ashley.
Can you hear?
Are you there? Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you, yeah. Sorry, you're breaking up there a little bit.
Oh, okay. So before we proceed, Ashley, I have two colleagues in the room. They'll introduce themselves, and then we'll ask you to present your submission. You have 5 minutes.
Hi,
Thank you.
Ashley.
Okay, cool.
It's Nikki Wagner, MP from Christchurch.
Hi there, Nikki.
Kia ora, Ashley. Anahela, Labourist MP, based at Papakura in Auckland.
Okay, good. No, thank you very much. Can I start? Or?
Yes, you can. Thank you, Ashley.
Okay. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for giving me another opportunity and platform to address this issue of basically treating good, honest people who generally give back more to society than other categorized groups, people who say drink or use hard drugs, for instance. This is a natural herb that helps so many people all over the world, people dealing with cancer, seizures, Alzheimer's, arthritis, the list is endless, depression, PTSD. In most first world and developed countries, it is legal. You are not regarded as a criminal if you use cannabis and get relief from your symptoms. The illogical law stating if someone has less than 12 months to live, then it is legal for them to use cannabis still leaves me a bit gobsmacked. It leaves a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, and I'm sure many others out there. Sort of looking at this and thinking, where's the logic in that? I'll first of all tell you a bit about myself. Now, I suffered terrible seizures from a bad decompression. I used to do saturation diving in the oil and gas industry and did decompression from 200 meters, and unfortunately, they stuck a bubble in my brain that caused me to have terrible seizures. And I lost everything. I lost my livelihood, which I was very good at, my family, I loved and still love to this day, my self-respect, my belief in myself, all my abilities. I was having epileptic seizures, and they were following the same pattern of saturation diving. So every 3 or 4 weeks, I was having these terrible seizures. When I was living in Piha at the time, and I'd be picked up by the Westpac chopper, so most people knew when I was having my seizures because the Westpac chopper would be arriving, and off I'd go and fly me off to Auckland City Hospital, and they put me into a coma, induced coma, and sometimes for 7 days I'd be in this coma. And, my heart started by the lady who runs the campground as well. She was very, very sweet to actually get my heart started the one time I was pretty much almost dead. And then I'd come out of these seizures and not know anything. I would know people around me. I would see me recognize my mother the one or two times. Not know where I'm at or what's going on, or it was quite freaky. And this is happening from 2013 every month until June last year. And my doctors are still amazed. My neurologist as well. He's one of the top neurologists in Auckland City Hospital, and he's also, they can prescribe anything, but they're just turning around and saying, a lot of the opinions are changing as well slowly. But for us that are suffering, he just said, Ash, keep doing what you're doing. I can't tell you what you shouldn't do, but you're not having seizures anymore, and so just keep doing what you're doing. And so that's where I'm at the moment. I used to come out of these comas, I couldn't eat, I was nauseous. I'd used some cannabis with a special machine called a Volcano that actually extracts all the cannabis out of it into a bag. It's one of the only recognised medical cannabis machines or for vaporizing. And straight away I'd be able to eat it. I'd recognise people. I was seizing on the ground at one time. My ex actually filled up a bag and squirted it in my mouth, and I came straight out of seizure and I started talking normally. Everyone was just amazed. So I don't understand why it's legal. I don't want to be treated like a criminal anymore, but I can't stop what I'm doing because it is helping me. My seizures now, it's almost a year coming up. My life is coming back. I can work again. I can contribute to society again. It's been a long time, and I just tired of being regarded as a criminal. I'm sure a lot of people now, I'm sure just in the idea must know somebody, some friends and family that is using cannabis for pain, for arthritis, for cancer. The reason why I use this machine is because it's instantaneous relief. So I have to use fresh herb and put it inside the machine, and within a few seconds, it stops me from seizing. So, like I say, I would just like this to be put forward and at least people to listen to this and hear our plea, because there's some really good people out in society that should not be regarded as criminals anymore. I'm certainly one of them. And I know a lot out there too. So, I don't really know what else to say. Besides, thank you for giving us this platform at least to address this issue, and hopefully this can be addressed sooner rather than later. And like I say, I'm just going to continue doing what I've got to do to keep myself alive and keep motivated. So, thanks again.
And can I say thank you, Ashley, for choosing to engage in a process where, there is some vulnerability in some of what you've shared, but I actually think us understanding the relevance of this piece of legislation, the relevance of cannabis to people's lives, is really important because we understand who this bill is trying to help, and I think it will help us make a much more effective piece of legislation. Well, that's the aim of our select committee process anyway, and we can't do that without the people, the public inputting. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, same to you all out there, and thanks again. Hopefully speak soon sometime when everything's changed.
Lovely.
All right.
Thank you. And then we have Mark. Is Mark in the room? Yeah, Mark, you'll be up after Kelly. So, yeah, just thank you. And then Russell. Oh, sorry, Joshua. Joshua? If Joshua's not here, it'll be Russell. Kia ora, Kelly. It's Louisa Wall speaking, the chair of the Health Select Committee. Can you hear me?
I can, Louisa, yes.
Oh, that's lovely. Now, before we hand over to you and give you 5 minutes for your submission, I have two colleagues who want to introduce themselves.
Hi, Kelly. It's Nikki Wagner, MP from Christchurch.
Hi, Nikki.
Kia ora, Kelly. Anna Hela, Labour List Member of Parliament based at Papakura in Auckland.
Good afternoon to you all.
Afternoon. So we're in your hands, thank you, Kelly.
We're on the loudspeaker, are we?
Yes, you
You
are.
can hear me.
There is there's a room full of people, so a lot of interest in this bill today.
Well, it stands to reason that would be because as a country we're a long way behind, I believe. Did Nikki, did anyone, I imagine someone read my letter detailing my history, let alone that of an expat?
Yes, we have your...
Who had, so the proof is pretty substantial with some of the submissions alone, I imagine, let alone the documented history sort of pretty much worldwide now, that as far as medicinal use or necessity, it's really well overdue. And if anything, really I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about the real decriminalisation of this substance. It really is time for change. Surely there's expats that don't come home because they're not going to have the same security net if they leave where they are. And even that is in jeopardy nowadays, as the likes of Jakh Heremia have proven, with the demand for a high-value product. It's really a bit of a no-brainer. It's an industrial chance, an industrial niche market that as a country we're quite capable of filling. It grows like a weed, like it's meant to. We don't have to try and add value to it. It's already valued. I've spent some time on the land, and everyone's always talked about adding value to their products. And here's an opportunity. Let's not let it slide by like the 70s with the opiates that landed in Tasmania. They provide a third of the world's income. It's really a no-brainer. So let's talk about decriminalisation and getting some guidelines in. Take the industrial advantage, the employment, the revenue, and use it to fight some of our real problems and issues in our ever-growing country. And let the farmers, let the land owners get something of real value out of it. I'm quite prepared to put my hand up to a land corporation and help out. It's as good as we want to replant 1 billion trees. Well, let's replant 1 billion hemp plants or whatever the proper strains need to be to make it value for all of us, not just medicinally, but as a country on a decent survey. I imagine I've been an employer, I've seen firsthand, it's well and truly here anyway. If you're over 21, why not be allowed it?
So,
your brain's finished developing. Make your own decision.
So you know, Kelly, that as part of the government formation, the Greens have managed to have agreement that there will be a referendum about decriminalisation in this parliamentary term. So presumably at the next election, but I think what we've been hearing stories about today is very much about how cannabis has been amazing in alleviating symptoms and people managing pain for a number of conditions.
And reasons, absolutely, I agree. Like the likes of amputees, back pain, let alone the people that have. I'm living proof. I'm a little upset I couldn't be there today and produce the paperwork that showed, you know, a grade 3 tumour that had basically been killed by me prior to anything else I went through. Yeah.
So
it's a no-brainer.
Well, that's wonderful. Any questions?
Just thank you for your ideas. It has crossed, this is Amahila. It did cross my mind, a billion trees.
Sorry? It does, sorry, what it does.
Along the same lines as you did, just to be honest, about the billion trees and possibilities.
Well, look, absolutely. Let's get back to state forestry and be proud of our timber instead of the junk that we're trying to sell on our domestic market. Is just wobbly, genetically modified timber. It's not acceptable. Grow what we used to grow, real quality timber. All our builders across the country will absolutely agree they've had enough of the shoddy wood. So let's get back to doing it properly.
Thank you, Kelly.
That's really helpful. Appreciate your input, Kelly. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Well, I have let a little bit off my chest. It feels, it's important that there's change.
Wonderful. We like that. Okay. Ka kite.
Ka kite. Good day to you all.
Now we have Mark. Live Mark. Live Mark. Sure.
Don't worry, it's not going to blow up. Just very hard to convince people currently that I was actually one very sick person. So that was me in a hospital bed about 2 years ago. I invite you all to look into that person's eyes and just think about what you see. It's important to note that when that photo was taken, I was actually on 62 kilos. And the chubby cheeks is caused by fluid retention from Meikle. So I'll move on to the rest of it now.
Thank you. No problem. I haven't started your time.
Ironically, because I am. I'll sit down.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. When you're ready, I'll begin your time.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee. I'd also just like to take a moment to thank MCANS. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for their support. They are a great organisation, and I would love to see the government acknowledge that. As you know from my submission, I'm a medicinal cannabis user. I'm okay with saying that. I've come to terms with it and I've moved on. I have Crohn's disease, and further to that, my mum has multiple sclerosis, which makes this whole issue even closer to my heart. She couldn't be here today, in part because of finances and obviously some things around her disease. So as I said before, it may not seem like it, but a couple of years ago I was a bedridden, depressed mess at about 60 kilos due to a horrible condition I will have for the rest of my life. And the meds that came along with it brought just unbearable side effects for me. They're mostly outlined, I think, in the submission. It was a bit of a cut and paste job from about 6 different drafts. So hopefully that makes it in there. But azathioprine, hydrocortisone, prednisone, codeine, morphine, tramadol, cyclizine, nortriptyline, zociclone, and some others that I either care not to remember the name of or genuinely just can't. Those are all medications that I had to take. I don't take any of those medications anymore. I haven't done for about 4.5 months now. I've also been in remission for 3.5 months for the first time since my diagnosis. Okay, you can draw your own conclusion as to why that is. But I sit before you today relatively fit, because I'm quite lazy, but definitely healthy. Like I said, I don't have to take those medications anymore. I did that very sensibly. I consulted with my GP throughout the whole process. I made him very aware of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I was very, very fortunate in that I just so happened to have a GP who was particularly supportive of that. Obviously, he couldn't do too much on a professional level, but he certainly gave me the space to make the decisions that I wanted to make, which I felt I was never given in the 2.5 years prior that I had involvement in the health system. I like to think to some extent that I'm a living proof of how cannabis can be beneficial to people. If you take the time to learn about it and you use it consistently and you use the right products and you use it as safely as humanly possible under our current legislation, it can be incredibly rewarding. I go as far as to say in my submission that I genuinely hand on heart believe that cannabis saved my life. I was going through huge issues with all the opiate medications that I was on, to a point where one day I came home from work and I just broke down into an absolute heap on the floor, and I bawled my eyes out like a 5-year-old girl for about an hour, and I said to my wife I just couldn't do it anymore. And I asked her to take all of the medication out of the house, because if it was left there I was going to take a lot more than I should. She, lovingly of course, she did that, which was the best thing that ever happened. Since then I started to use cannabis consistently, and that's how we end up where we are. I find, for me personally, edibles aren't overly practical. I know some people regarding with Crohn's have spoken to the Health Select Committee, completely separate issue. I appreciate that. I know it's a young child, so we'll keep those very separate. But you'll have a bit of an understanding of what people with Crohn's go through on a daily basis. For example, I can now go to the supermarket without shitting myself, to be frank, and I get to live a life with dignity. This law allows people to die with dignity, but it doesn't allow living people the same respect. That's my only real question to the Select Committee, if I'm really honest, is why is it that, I appreciate it wasn't either two of you individuals, but why is it that this legislation is written in such a way that it means that people can't live with dignity, they can only die with it, and in such a way that it means that, like I say in my submission, you expect terminally ill patients to go to tinny houses for what they believe is medicine, and you also expect me to sit there and watch my own mother deteriorate in health to a level where somebody is willing to give her a letter to say, hey, you're about to die, now you can have some relief.
That's not the way that it's written. It's actually just a dispensation from being prosecuted.
Yeah.
So it's a compassionate...
So it's not, you're not saying it's okay, you're just saying we're not going to lock you up in jail.
And I think the argument is that until people feel confident that they can have a product that's safe, that when people know that they're terminally ill, they perhaps would take more risks than somebody else.
That brings me back to the submission as well, in which I mentioned that I think people should have the right to grow their own medicine at home. You can do that safely. That is just that you can. No one has ever died from cannabis.
And I think that's where we've got, not sure if you're aware, but because in this parliamentary term the Parliament has considered a bill that proposed for people to grow their own, and it was voted.
Absolutely.
So I mean, we this parliamentary term we know that we've had the Chloe Swarbrick bill that was voted down. We have a government bill that was voted for, which is why we're here, and that at the end of this term, possibly at the next election, there'll be a referendum about decriminalisation. I think what a lot of...
It's not a binding referendum either, is it?
No. Well, no referendum in New Zealand are, unless they go through a process like we did with the flag.
But we could have a referendum and absolutely nothing could happen as a result.
Yeah, so, that's right.
I just
but I just want to
But what a lot of people have highlighted, and what you've particularly highlighted, see, once we create the regulatory regime, and it is deemed a medicine, cannabis, I can't see why that regime couldn't prescribe seeds for people, specific seeds, based on, you know, our full knowledge of what's in them.
It's funny you say that, because it's all along the lines of my wife's submission.
Yeah, so we
word for word.
So trust us, we are taking this role incredibly seriously, but there are constraints on what this committee can and can't do.
I appreciate that completely.
And we're just trying to be as transparent as possible with people, but...
I think I sum it up with the last bit of that submission when I say that cost should never be a barrier to somebody's well-being.
Yeah.
I don't believe one moment, and I think very, very few people do, that it's necessary for the taxpayer to be fishing out thousands of dollars to subsidise this medication, or for people to be paying $600 to $1,500 a month for this medication, when the reality is they can grow a product in their back garden or somewhere under lock and key, if you want to get technical about it, that is in some cases going to be superior to the products that are currently available.
And I personally, I believe this is the beginning of us being on the pathway to that. It's just navigating away from the historical reality that cannabis is illegal. And so what we're trying to do is to address all the issues that you and your colleagues have brought up. So can I just say
if I
thank you.
apologise for sounding grumpy.
Oh, no.
Very early this morning.
Okay. But, yeah, and I'm sorry about the time, but we've just had so many people wanting to speak to us that we've kind of restricted individual submissions to 5 minutes, but all of the organisations that you're all part of, please be reassured, they've all been given 15 minutes, and we see them as a full committee. We have decided to break and hear individual submissions as to subcommittees, but it's actually about keeping this bill on track, getting it back into the House, so that it will be passed this year.
One thing that I was talking to some people about earlier that I just really want to make you guys aware of, which is a little bit of an understanding thing around Crohn's, and the way that it can or may not help with cannabis, because I appreciate there's not a lot of evidence out there directly related to Crohn's. There's not, and I accept that. That's reality. It's worked for me, I'll say that, but I accept on a scientific level there's very little. We often talk about smoking and things like that, the edibles, you would have heard a lot about that sort of stuff, oils, teas, all of those sorts of things. I just want to add, for people with inflammatory bowel disease, or me in particular, I don't really want to speak for other people, that's not fair. The amount of inflammation within my bowel varies significantly at any given time. It could be quite severe to quite limited. I've been very fortunate in the last 4 months that I've had virtually none. But as a result of that, if I consume edibles at a time where I have a lot of inflammation in my bowel, I don't absorb that properly. Okay. But if I eat edibles at a time when there's no inflammation in my bowel, I absorb that entirely and do absolutely nothing for the rest of the day. What I'm saying is that there has been some talk about limiting the way that people consume cannabis. The point I'm trying to make is that some ways are better for some people and other ways are better for other people. And I just think that's something we really need to get a little bit of understanding around, because what works for Bob might not work for John.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott.
Before, is Joshua in the room? No? Okay, so Russell. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou. Now, I gather you have read my written submission?
Yes, we have.
Right, well, I won't go through that again. Just for the record, it is about me choosing to break the law to obtain a cannabis product for my friend who was dying, and I wish to affirm I would do that again. It's also about the risks and harms that were attached to that action because of the law as it stands, only some of which would be eased by the bill at hand. I'll jump to the conclusion of my submission. I ask you to consider taking a realistic and compassionate view and do the following. Use the regulations that will be attached to this bill to make its gesture towards the terminally ill work in the real world by allowing them to nominate an approved supplier. I think that at the moment the bill simply will not do what it purports to do because it leaves the legal risks surrounding everyone but the patient. Recognise that the terminally ill are not the only New Zealanders derive benefit from cannabis products and allow others with chronic conditions to register to use those products. Provide specific protection for hospitals and hospices from prosecution under Section 12 of the Misuse of Drugs Act. And I'm not sure whether this has come up in your proceedings. Section 12 is the offence of allowing a premises to be used for the commission of an offence against the Misuse of Drugs Act. And it may not, it may never happen, but it is enough to prevent hospices from allowing cannabis products to be used, which is what happened in the case of my friend. I don't think they were opposed to the use of cannabis per se. They did not want to expose themselves to the legal risk. And I really think this is something you have to look at in this bill. There is a comparison there with pill testing at festivals. And the major barrier there is that festival owners and organisers can't afford to put themselves at that legal risk. I would also be keen to see you allow a local industry to develop by allowing export of locally produced products and by not excluding those with existing convictions from participating in the industry. Someone else mentioned hikurangi before. I think what they want to do and what they're doing is inspiring, and I hope they can do it. Even though you've told me I'm not allowed to ask it, allow self-growing under regulation. I would rather see that handled under general cannabis reform, but that seems a long way away. So I would like that to, and also finally to enable research into growing and clinical trials. The trend in the developing global industry is overwhelmingly towards breeding plants with specific desired attributes. And that's an area in which New Zealand has a really strong history. And I think that would apply here as well. So I am asking you to regulate cannabis differently to other potential medicines. But maybe this is a bit easier because it is already regulated very differently to other potential medicines. It's regulated differently to other controlled drugs under the Misuse of Drugs Act. It's much harder to prescribe than morphine or heroin or even cocaine. So we have this situation. I mean, I understand the New Zealand Medical Association's position, and clinical trials are important. I have no quarrel with the pharmacist. But it's a system geared towards delivering novel products to market. And this is not what we're looking at with cannabis. It's a very different challenge. It's already in use very widely in many cases. And this is the case with my friend before he died as well. It's in use with the knowledge and approval of doctors. That is a very different situation to, say, a new drug that has been developed and is someone's intellectual property. And that's one of the reasons that you're not seeing a lot of products progress through the phase 3 trials, is because it's hard to own. You know, the current system is geared towards developing intellectual property. They are product trials of products. And I think there are various other reasons that you are going to... I think Israel may actually crack it with research, but at the moment most medical research is done in the US, which currently makes it very difficult to conduct research into cannabis and also prohibits the use of modern strains. And as I noted before, this is the whole point of growing modern cannabis strains, is for specific attributes. So I think there's a real problem with research at the moment. And I do understand what the doctors are saying, but this is not a normal situation with a new product. Any questions?
No, I think really clear. I really want to thank you about that Section 12 exemption.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah. Because I mean, I write about this stuff all the time, and it's fascinating, and it's nice to actually get to deliver something.
Well, if you see it in our Select Committee report as a recommendation, you'll know it's come from.
That'll be me. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Juliet in the room? Kia ora, Juliet.
Kia ora. I've got a bit of a throat, so I hope you can hear me.
Need some water or anything? You gonna be okay?
I'll just speak slightly lower. I'm Juliet McAra, and I've travelled up from Christchurch, where I have a good friend in his 50s with stage 4 bile duct cancer. He's been given 3 months to 2 years by the oncologist. He's had 7 months since diagnosis, and he's still working full-time in the nursing profession. This man needs help accessing cannabis, and several circles of friends around him have become involved trying to help him. This is what he wants, even though he hasn't been involved in recreational cannabis prior to his diagnosis. New Zealand doesn't have anything else to offer him beyond a small amount of chemo which he has had. Possibly in Australia he would get an immunotherapy drug. Anyway, cannabis has been really helpful for his sleep and for pain relief, and he also hopes that if he can have it in high enough doses that he might slow the cancer down and have a bit more time with his family. There are plenty of anecdotes to show that this can happen in a few cases. So what has he got to lose? But the thing that's bothering him is that his friends are at risk of arrest. So this is very stressful for him and his friends. The people who help such patients should be commended, not made criminals. They most especially should not be made criminals when in the next few years this drug could well be legal or decriminalised. A compassionate system would allow growers to grow and processors to process medicine of any type that patients need from this plant until other options are available in years to come. I'd like to suggest that you somehow find a way to have some kind of moratorium on arresting those who supply patients with any illness that benefits from medical cannabis. Not just those with only 1 year left. It's a time of transition, I hope, until we have a Canadian or Israeli or Colorado style set up, picking out the best aspects of all those, of all those that have gone before and trying to avoid their worst mistakes. It beggars belief that police energy should be wasted at this time of transition when real crimes with actual victims are being committed. So please consider a moratorium on prosecution for that wider circle of helpers. Remember, there are no victims, so this does not have to be a crime. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Steve?
You're clear. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for caring for your friend and coming up from Christchurch.
Thank you.
Is David here? Kia ora, David.
Hi.
Welcome. We have your submission.
Yeah, it's very brief.
It is. But you have 5 minutes, so it's your time. You can talk as much as you like. And we can
Okay, look, yeah, I'm not very good at public speaking, but here we go. I'm here on behalf of all New Zealanders, the sick and healthy. I haven't had time to be able to sit in here all day and listen to people's submissions, so I don't know what's been said before. But listening to Russell then, it's pretty much the same as what I would like to say. And that not just CBD needs to be looked at and regulated and approved, but the whole plant, all the cannabinoids. Yeah. I heard Nikki say something about the safety of cannabis, and apparently nobody's died from taking cannabis themselves. But
it's to do with mental health and psychosis that people are concerned about.
Yeah, but that's only a few people.
They say about 10%, something like that.
I heard it was a bit more.
10, 15, I don't know. There was a bit of a debate. We've had people given a large numbers.
And that's only those people that are susceptible to it, and if they choose to use it. So really the number would be much lower. But nobody's died from it. And if you were to sit down and smoke it, you'd need to smoke 1,500 pounds of it in 15 minutes for it to be fatal. Now to put that in context, paracetamol, an adult only needs 10 grams. 10 grams, and this is available everywhere. People should be able to have access to cannabis, and it doesn't need to be expensive. You can get a seed for $10, chuck it in the ground, and it will grow like a weed. And there's somebody's medicine, $10. Not $350 an ounce, or $400, or whatever the, I think it's $350 that the government approved cannabis is going to cost people. That stuff from Canada. Hang on a second.
All right.
Yeah. Safe, affordable medicine. That's what the people want. It's what the majority of people want. And you are the people that can do it. It's up to you.
It is.
And don't let us down like the 2001 committee. Do you have access to that information?
Yes, no, we've had access to a lot of the historical information. I think the difference that we see today is we actually do have a bill. So, and it is a government bill with the support.
Yeah, but it doesn't do much for the general public. It's just for
people who have
chronically ill people on death's door.
No, so once the regime is in place and cannabis is available, it will be able to be, you know, doctors will be able to prescribe it to anybody that they feel will benefit from it. The exemption in the law is only for those who have a terminal illness. So there's a little bit of, just a bit of a misunderstanding. People think that it's only terminally ill people that can use cannabis. What we've said is, which has been tested today, I must say, is that we will exempt the law and say to our police officers, don't prosecute people if they're terminally ill, because in a couple of years' time, when the regime is ready...
But isn't it at the discretion of the police? Can't they still prosecute if they want to?
No, not if the law goes through. They won't have that ability to prosecute the people who we define in the bill as being exempt from that law. At the moment, it's terminally ill people only. But I have to say, we've heard some pretty good arguments about it being broader, and I think
it needs to be, because the anti-inflammatory properties of cannabis are well documented. You can look on the internet.
Yeah.
There's thousands of papers being written.
Yeah. So I know this is all a very meaningful exercise. And so thank you very much.
Anyway, yeah, I just sort of had to come and have my say.
Good on you. Good on you. It's awesome. Oh, okay. Cool. Jordon. Jordon, welcome to the Health Select Committee.
Tēnā rā tātou. Ko tōra Mathew Harding tēnei, ko te maunga titohi o Taranaki. Kia ora, I'm Jordon. Reason I've come today is because cannabis helped me get out of a wheelchair and out of a coma and I was born with Trigella GFLA, and I've had cerebral palsy. I've had blackouts since I was a teen. I've had quite a numerous open heart surgeries. I've had 11 strokes. I've learned how to walk, talk and all that sort of stuff. And in 2016, a Canadian doctor in Wellington Hospital told me to try cannabis. I hated it. I grew up in Porirua in Kenneth Creek, where I saw my friends suffer from mental state of mind things because they went to cannabis to other higher drugs, and I was not having that. And I was having quite a lot of seizures, and I was on very high medication. I was on 57 tablets a day. My liver and all my organs were starting to shut down, and I went to natural medicine. So I'm a rongo practitioner for Ora Tika Rongo Māori in here in the Wellington region and Kapiti Coast and Hutt Valley. And I swear by the cannabis that it can help. I've had back problems all my life because when I was 8 I had to keep my Achilles lengthened, and they stretched it too far and it snapped in the middle, so I'm 3.5 inches shorter on the right hand side, which gives you a lot of back problems. Medication wasn't working anymore because I had been on them far too long since I was a kid. And the cannabis is natural. I don't know what else to say, but I've helped numerous things with iwi settlements, and I'm involved with our Taranaki maunga at the moment. And I know if I hadn't have been on cannabis, I probably wouldn't have been here. I've even tried committing suicide a couple of times, but then I decided, nope, that's not the right thing to do. And the Canadian doctor that was in Wellington's now gone back to Canada because there was too much heat on her. So I'm an iwi leader of Taranaki. I can't see a problem with having medical cannabis allowed, but the criteria is not good enough for people like me that are young, can do things. If I hadn't have tried cannabis, I probably would still be on all of those medications. I'm also on rongo Māori, but cannabis is a natural way to go, and it helps with pain. And most of our population in prison is for cannabis charges. And at the moment, I'm going through court now in Porirua for cannabis charges. Only a small amount, but that small amount still counts, which could, I work with RDA and live in. So I used to be an RDA patient, and now I'm giving back to what they've done for me. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Kia ora tātou.
Can I ask you a question? Have you given up the other medications, and is cannabis enough?
Yes. I was put into the nut house after going off those medications because the doctors believed I was crazy enough, I'm going to die, and I proved them wrong.
Thank you, Jordon. Appreciate your submission. Yeah, that's what 3 p.m. on the sign. Craig. Yeah, is Craig here? So, and just to let people know, next we have Richard and Brandon before we have a break, but we're allowing Craig to present now because he needs some support. So thank you. Kia ora.
Hello. My name is Craig. I'll quickly read it out. Okay, a little background about myself. I'm blind. I'm born deaf and blind in one eye, and my good eye got limited sight left. Now I've got tinnitus, really bad tinnitus. It rains all day, 24 hours, 7, all the time. Not it's howling in my head. Now I've got verbal broken bone from motocross when I was young. So when I got older now, arthritis starts to nag and develop. Now I have unclear hypertension in the eye, which is very high risk for glaucoma. Glaucoma and the blood pressure, the eyeball pressure gets too great, it can damage the nerve in the back, I can go blind. I don't want to end up blind and deaf. Where am I now? So I'm using cannabis to fight the progression and to stop going end up blind and deaf. I don't want to lose my independence. My eye specialist, he agreed, but he can't write a letter for me because the institution for the ophthalmologist, the eye specialist, they are not up to speed with it, so he can't. I use conventional eye drop with some success. That cannabis is the only way I can deal with the pain in the eye, and the only way I can deal with the tinnitus. The tinnitus is drowning me out in hell. I can't have a conversation with people nowadays. I get quite isolated and quite depressed. Again, cannabis helps with this as well. I used to take antidepressants years ago. I did not like it. Prescription, they're flying. They're quite dangerous. They can make people quite suicidal. And the electric shock, I missed a day or two. And no, I don't take it anymore. Like Shona Daube one, he's considered activism swear word. I would like to take it further. I think cannabis, drug, it's a swear word. I don't think cannabis is a drug. Cannabis is a medicine. It's natural, comes from a plant. So it's not a drug. It's safe medicine. Safe, nothing now come close. I am concerned. Okay, now I've introduced myself here. Now, what I'd like to say, I'm concerned about the lie, the misinformation I've seen in rehabilitation places, doctor's office, when they have pamphlets telling you different information about cannabis. Or youth centre, or doctor centre. I'm quite disturbed that they compare meth and cannabis the same thing, same level of danger. Absolutely nonsense. That's full of this misinformation. It's not helping. If we're going to go forward to legalise cannabis or medical cannabis, people are going to have the information is going to have to be clear. And a lot of people who are in this cannabis movement are quite well versed with politics and health and human rights aspects. I follow it myself too. And I would like to say cannabis is a human rights issue. It's not to be viewed as a potential customer for farmers' interest. We're not interested in a pharmaceutical grade little wee bottle, ridiculous overpriced, so extremely difficult to access. I also believe that there should be an agency outside the doctor's office. We already have plenty of cannabis experts work with us, not against us. No matter how big or how small the pain or disability can be visible or can be invisible. So please don't judge people. I would like to say to the committee, you may not take medicine, cannabis as medicine yourself, but we do. Listen to us. See how many people actually swear by it. If we don't use it, we're not hurting you. It's not what the crime. And we had no fear of using it because nothing dangerous. It's not dangerous. Nothing further from its truth. It's a genuine healing plant. I mean, it's like a tomato, vegetable, carrot. People should be able to act it right themselves. But don't say no. I really would like to see all this false information to be rectified and true. And what else? Do this, and we will never look back again while helping improve New Zealand's health and economy, free enterprise, and create jobs, and get people up. Actual hard drug like methamphetamine. Free cannabis, we're adults, treat up like it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for the promotion of information, because that's different from everyone else's submissions today.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you. Richard, please.
Hello guys.
Hey Richard.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here today and voice my opinions on medicinal cannabis in this country. I've broken it up into 4 different sections here. The reason I first became interested in cannabis medication, the situation I find myself in now, how I think we can go forward with this in this country, and the concerns that currently we're up against. So, first of all, the reason I started researching for help for my mother, which was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease 8 years ago now. Luckily, it's been a very slow process, if you like. Unfortunately, she was told by the medical fraternity that there was basically nothing we can do, just go and enjoy the rest of the time you have. That wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to help, so I did some research, came across CBD. Actually, originally it was hemp seed oil, which was proving to be a good sort of brain food for people with dementias and brain problems. Then the CBD came about. I thought, well, this is what we need to do. Then I found out that you could actually get a license, apply for a license to grow. I'm from a rural background, so I've been around farming and horticulture all my life. So I thought, well, this is the way forward. Back then, CBD was so that I was licensed to grow industrial hemp, low THC cannabis 4 years ago now. Just last year, managed to obtain my research and breeding license. Luckily, working alongside the man that's been very prominent in this industry in this country from day one. Anyway, so basically, that's the reason I became interested in cannabis and cannabis-based medication. The situation that we're in is the fact that I can legally grow a plant that can help my mother, but under the current law, I'm not allowed to, which is a very hard thing to deal with. And I, of course, run risk of losing all my work to date, my licenses and things, if I was seen or to be helping my mother with what I'm doing. So I'm being extremely careful, of course. So yeah, and it's not just my mother. Really, it's become now with the growing information that people are getting around cannabis-based medication. I'm getting phone calls and emails on nearly a daily basis now. Can you help me? Can you help me? Because it appears that CBD oils are being marketed as hemp oils around the world, so they see my hemp business, so they're calling me for help. And of course, unfortunately, I say I can't help you. So it's very hard to deal with all that. How I think it could benefit this country, and how we could potentially go forward. I've learnt a lot around the legislation, of course, with my hemp licensing and things. Had quite a number of meetings with the Ministry of Health already in the last 4 years so far. Basically, low THC cannabis hemp should certainly be taken out of the Misuse of Drugs Act. It's basically strangling the industry immensely. So if that was to be done, that would just allow an industry to start, so there needs to be a change there. Where am I up to? Sorry, guys. So also, of course, I'm sort of leaning towards CBD medication. I believe also there's a need for research and access to THC as well, because that's proving to be very beneficial. Also, I am aware that, of course, there's more concern around the safety of THC with being a mind-altering compound. But so are many other drugs that we have available to us are mind-altering too. So there we go. Basically, if we can form a medicinal cannabis industry in this country, and if I was given the opportunity to be a grower of a high quality product, I would make sure that I would strive to be on par, or if not better, leading facilities around the world. And I think we tend to be very good at that. We can take things from other people and make it better. And I think it would be nice if we could do that and be famous for something else. Also, I guess just the concerns that I have witnessed thus far in my cannabis growing time is, if we're going to do this efficiently and properly, we certainly need a really well thought out and good framework to work with as growers, as biochemists, manufacturers of the medicine, right from the seed to sale, basically. So this is a great opportunity, and I think it's good that we have, there's an old saying, good things take time, and I've witnessed that in my life already. So I think we do need to take some time and get it right, so I hope we can do that. And I'd just like to say that, I would certainly make sure that I do everything possible to make sure that, and work alongside government organisations to help get us over the line, basically. So, anyway, thank you.
And Brandon. Brandon Hutchison.
That is me.
Very
good.
Yeah.
So, thank you for. I've flown up from Christchurch for this. I come from a long-standing drug law reform background, and I have a good science background as well. I'm young enough to remember when you could get away with murder if the victim that you murdered was a homosexual. I'm young enough to remember that. I'm not young enough to remember slavery and burning witches. The reason I say that is because I guess in 100 years, or even preferably less, we will be looking on the Misuse of Drugs Act and drug prohibition and this scenario here the same way that we look at how we persecuted homosexuals, how we kept slaves and burnt witches. It is an appalling scenario. But anyhow, that's just a preamble to my. I was wanting to refer to the Medical Association and the College of GPs and the College of Psychiatrists submission, which is very brief. Basically, they in fact, they obviously all compared notes, I think, are asserting that there is no efficacy of cannabis, and they don't know much about it, and we need more research. It's almost contradictory in a way. I submit that the efficacy of cannabis has been long established for thousands of years, and it's increasing dramatically, especially since the 90s with the work of McCollum finding the endocannabinoid system. It is actually a fundamental function of our bodies. And they are opposed to getting a defence for the terminally ill. But if you turn it around the other way, what they're saying is these people should be prosecuted.
No, I think from them it was we don't want to be responsible for writing notes.
They don't want to be involved, yeah. But a lot of their members are. I know many GPs who are who are sympathetic to that thing. So that was an official line. So I'm just concerned about it. But leading on from that, what they're asserting is that, or some people are viewing it as it's a medical issue, and we will control it as a medical issue. And that's a fundamental philosophical problem I have. Now, I'm very sympathetic to the medical industry. My daughter's a doctor, and I believe in science and that sort of thing. So you won't find me ranting on about big pharma conspiracies or anything like that, even if one or two of them are true. But you won't, it's not like that. And one of the submissions, I forget which one, suggested that cannabis should be lumped in with complementary and alternative medicines. Now, that's very problematic as well, because while some of those may have some efficacy, some of them are just ludicrous. Things like homeopathy and things like that are just nonsense. And so I'm suggesting those organisations are disappointingly ill-informed on this issue, really. So, and that's a big worry, because you'd think they would be prestigious people, and that would be the gold standard of. I noticed the addiction centre at Otago Med School came out. Yes, and they are very au fait with this issue. We know people like Doug Selman and things are very clued up on this issue. So I'm just asking that when you're deliberating on this matter, that you just don't say, well, this is a medical matter, what do the medical people say? It's actually impacting on how what right do people have over their bodies and things, and that's the big issue. And I laugh at people who use homeopathy. I hope I'm not offending people. I probably am. I'm sorry. But we laugh at. But I would not want the criminal law to be in any way involved in that whatsoever. Okay. And similarly, I do not want the criminal law to be involved in cannabis. Now, and that's basically what I wanted to say to you. There are harms from cannabis. People say it's not addictive. Well, you can. There are people who smoke it morning, noon, and night, and are like zombies. But that is not a typical scenario. Now, Nikki, you mentioned something about psychosis. I didn't really want to get involved in that sort of thing, but you said a figure of 10%. Yeah, I think that's slightly outrageously high. I think if you
we've heard from the Psychiatrists Association, it's between 3 and 10.
I suppose it should be of 3 or 10 of what? Because the rates of schizophrenia have been stable and are stable at about 1% throughout the country. And
psychotic episodes?
Psychotic, perhaps I shouldn't be lumping schizophrenia with psychotic, but it's related.
The submissions will be on the website.
They will be there.
The psychiatry.
Okay. Yeah. But just there's a lot of controversy on that area, especially probably the work of Richie Polton and the Otago longitudinal study is looked at in great detail, genetic basis. But I just to say cannabis, you could say, well, 10% of cannabis users are going to go psychotic. That I think is a gross exaggeration. So I'm just asking that you really look at a lot of information on that, not just take one faction. Sorry, I'm not an expert. I have studied it. Okay. I find that outrageously high, and I have looked at the issue, but I didn't come here to talk about the technical matters like that. I was just sort of trying to give a philosophical view of don't let the medical profession say this is our issue and we're not going to let you use cannabis. It's a rights issue, and that's really what I was going to say. Really. So you want to ask a question? I'll have a cup of tea and. Okay.
No, we really appreciate that. I actually don't have any questions for you. I mean, I think what we've heard is that actually it's about a product and how the people who need that product, what they think about that product, their experience of that product, and the ability to use that product within a framework where currently it's prohibitive because it's it's an illegal substance.
Right.
So it's how do we as a society move from that? And you're right, probably an analysis after we've done it all, we'll go, why has that taken us so long?
That's what I have submitted in these buildings 20 years ago on this issue. I have been involved in the policy area for some time, and I'm dismayed that we're still doing it.
So you were involved in that?
I was the General Secretary of the Legalised Cannabis Party, and I've also been on the what used to be called the CCCAD in Christchurch, a drug alcohol organisation. Yeah. When I say that, I must point out that I have never, ever consumed cannabis. People find that hard to believe, but because I believe that prohibition is wrong and very, very harmful to our society, and it's now gratifying that view is starting to become mainstream. It's starting to, but we still have these laws on our books. But,
you're right, and it's, 17 years later?
It's 70 years in New Zealand as cannabis prohibition. And it does not have good basis, in my view. But I'm ranting, it's only a polemic. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate that. So we're just going to have a little break, everybody.